Hi everyone, welcome back to my video. Today we're going to be talking about all the books I read since July. I know it's been a long time, we're in December right now, but unfortunately I'm not the typical booktuber or book talker that everyone is very used to, where people read like 10 books a month. I read like 2 or 3, and in good months I do read more, but with university that's really hard because I do have to read books for my courses, and they're not literary works. Most of the time they're really just theory and stuff about the stuff I'm studying, so I don't really have that much time. But I did complete my Goodreads reading challenge, so let's get to it. So the first book that I finished since July was Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata, and well, this book is pretty much about our main character, whose name is Keiko, and she turned 18. She started working to a branch whose name was Smile Mart, and ever since then she just started loving working there. And we are aware that from what is told in the book, she's not like the other girls, not in that quirky sense, like I'm not like other girls, in the sense of like she's different, and in my opinion she seemed very autistic, very of the characterization of certain things she would do, and the ways that she would react to certain things in the book were very typical of someone with autism. But it's never stated in the book that she does have autism, the tism. But as things are happening, she grows older, she still keeps working in this convenience store, but all of her friends think that's kind of weird that she's still working there because all the other people have normal jobs and she's still working there. She does end up in a really weird situation with a man, who was her old co-worker in the same convenience store, and they start living together because due to her problem she has a difficulty starting relationships, and she's very unaware of certain social cues. So yeah, they end up sharing a household. But it ends up being really weird, because he starts making her do weird stuff, not in a sexual way because he has no intention of doing anything romantic with her, more in a sense of like, I don't want you working in the place you are right now, we need to get more money so you can help me, what's the word in English? You can help me pay up all my debt. Word. And she ends up firing herself. That's not the word. She stops working in the place she always loved, and at the end of the book, spoiler, she ends up going to the place where she always worked, and she loves doing what she does, and she doesn't really care that she's old and doing a job that would be something someone would do for like 3 months, 1 year maybe, and she has been doing for like 15 years. Overall, I didn't really like the book. There were certain aspects of the book that really pissed me off, especially with her family, because they never really understood her and never helped her get the help that she needed. But overall, it wasn't really that bad. I think I had really high expectations for it. That's why I ended up feeling very annoyed by certain things in the book. But I do suggest anyone reading it. It's a really short read and anyone can enjoy it. And I ended up talking too much about it. Let's go. So the next books I read were the ACOTAR graphic audios. Yeah, if you know me, you probably don't know me, that's totally fine, but I started reading the ACOTAR books last year, and ended up I read all of them before the orange one came out. I read all of them, and then the orange one came out, which is Silver in Flames, yeah. Before it came out, I had read all of them, and then I found out this year, before, like, during summer, that there were audio graphic books, and I didn't know that. So I was like, well, I don't have to read. I can just experience all of this while I'm working and stuff. So I decided to get the books. I downloaded them to my cell phone. I got them everywhere I could be listening to. And let's just say that was an experience. That was amazing. Kind of weird in certain parts, but really cool. If you don't know, the books, they're written by Sarah J. Maas. They're fairy fantasy types of books. They have a little bit of smut in them. And when I say a little bit, they have a lot. By the last books, they do have a lot. The first one, not really, but the rest, oh mama. But they're amazing. They're focused on our main character, Farah, who's a very poor girl from a very poor family, and she ends up doing something that she shouldn't have done and gets captured by a fairy. And when I say fairy, I don't mean like Tinkerbell fairy. I'm talking about men, strong men, you know, that kind of stuff. And the books evolve all throughout that. I'm not going to explain too much about it because we'll start getting into spoiler zones. But she does go into a fairy world and leaves her human world behind, and there's a lot of things that happen throughout all of the books, and I do suggest anyone reading, or in this case, listening to the books, because they are great and you can finish them all off in like a month or so. And if you're weird, you can finish them all in a week. I'm not saying I did, but I'm also not saying I didn't. Carrying on. Now, the next book I did read after finishing the ACOTAR, guess what? It was also a Sarah J. Maas book, and it was Kingdom of Ash. I started reading the books, all of the Throne of Glass books, at the beginning of the year, and it took me a long time to come to the last one. It took me way too long to start reading the last one and finishing it, because it's a huge chunk. It's huge, and it's not like I have a hard time reading long books. My average is like 300 to 500 page book, but this one was long ass, and it was the finishing book of the whole Throne of Glass series, and I have a really hard time reading the last books of series because it means they've come to an end, and there's not much for me to read after. So I get really sad about it, and I don't care. I got really sad. I was very happy for finishing it, because goddamn, it took me a long time to finish the books. But at the same time, it was a sour taste in my mouth, because I finally finished them, and then I had not much more to read. So yeah, there's that. And if you haven't read Throne of Glass, I'm not gonna say I suggest reading it, because if you're going into them thinking, oh my god, this is probably so much like ACOTAR, it's not. It's completely different. There's this thing called romantic fantasy and fantastic romance. I think that's how you focus them, the two of them. And in this case, I would categorize Throne of Glass as a fantastic romance, and ACOTAR as a romantic fantasy. Yeah, that makes sense. Because ACOTAR is more focused on the romance and a bit of like war-related stuff, while Throne of Glass is like, war, suffering, I'm gonna make my enemies pay for what they've done to me, and a little bit of romance in there. Like, you see what... everything that happened in Silver and Flames, what's the name? I don't know the name of the books, but the last book of ACOTAR, it was just spice, every single chapter. Throne of Glass, you get in total like 4 chapters, 5 maybe, of spice in like all the 8 books. So yeah, it's not much spice, and I did know that going into the books, and I still found them really fantastic. So give it a read. It's focused on the our main character is called wait, I don't want to say the wrong name. Selena Serdothian. She's an assassin, and she has been locked down in a really weird stone underground jail type of thing. And then there's a king that comes and asks her to participate in an assassin type of contest where she has to fight off all of the other assassins and try to win the grand prize of becoming the king's assassin and stuff like that. It's a really weird first book, but from then on, there's a lot of shit that happens, and that's amazing. And that's not Kingdom of Ash, but that's Throne of Glass in a nutshell. The next book I read, and you also don't know me, but if you do know me, you know which one it is. It was Blood of Elves by Andrzej Sapkowski. I absolutely love Witcher. I love the Witcher books. I love the games. I hate the series. We're not gonna talk about the TV show. We're not gonna talk about the TV show because that was an absolute disappointment. And fun fact, I had to do schoolwork about the Witcher books and comparing them to the TV show, and I did not enjoy it. It was very disappointing comparing all the differences of the show and the books. But going back to what I said, I read Blood of Elves, which is the first book of the series. You have three books that are not focused on the main story, which are Sword of Destiny and The Last Wish. These are the first 2 novellas, and then you have a standalone novel that you can read after finishing the main stories, which is Season of Storms. You can't see it, but it's right here. I love them. Season of Storms. So I've read the books when I was younger, but I've forgotten them because they're so long, and it was so long ago, and my English wasn't as good as it's now, and even now it's not really that great, so there is that. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you don't know Witcher, it focuses on it's a really weird way to say this, but it's like a mutant assassin that kills monsters. This is a fantasy world where there's a lot of, imagine Game of Thrones, but with less dragons and less there's a lot of different like countries and cities trying to fight each other, but this mostly focuses on our main character Geralt, who's a witcher, mutant assassin, and he ends up with a child of surprise, which I'm not going to mention who it is. If you haven't seen it, you will find out while reading the books, but he makes a lot of great friendships, a lover or 2 or 3, it depends on which media you're consuming. If you're consuming the games, a lot of lovers. If you're consuming the books, I would say 2 lovers. He has 2 lovers, 2 different ones, but that's up to your interpretation of the books. And this mostly focuses on him. I love the short stories. First off, each short story has a different type of thing you have to focus on, and he fights a different monster. He needs to focus on certain type of political thing that's happening in certain city, kingdom, whatever. And he's like, yeah, I can sort this out. And then he takes out his swords and fights off enemies. It's amazing. I love this type of fantasy. High fantasy, no, it's not high fantasy. High fantasy is mostly with fairies. But I would say it's very much similar to the fantasy that Brandon Sanderson gives to his readers. I think that's a good combination and comparison. So yeah, it's amazing. You should read it. I really do suggest anyone reading the Witcher books. Next off, we have 2 books by Emily Henry, Book Lovers and Beach Read. I went into the books not knowing anything. I swear to God, I didn't know nothing about it. I had a friend suggest me the books. She said these were the best. There's another one that I have to read, but she did say they were good and that I could consume them. They were in their prime to consume, so I did. And I do have one thing to say. Emily Henry does have a tendency of repeating certain things in her books, and miscommunication is one of them, and I do hate miscommunication. I know it's something that's very like normal to happen, but I just hate it. I absolutely hate it. Learn to communicate, people. So Book Lovers focuses on our 2 main characters, Nora and Charlie. Nora is not your common heroine? That's really weird to say. She's not your common main character of the books that ends up with a gorgeous guy from another town. You know, she's from New York. She has a little sister called Lily, and I don't know why I did that accent. And she likes romance, but it's not her thing in real life. She ends up going on a trip with her sister to Sunshine Falls because she's a person that helps authors publish their books. She's not a publisher. She doesn't work for a publisher, but she's like the person who helps modify all the things that you need to on a book. I don't recall the name in English, but she does that. And she helped one of her authors publish a book that's focused on this little city called Sunshine Falls. And her sister loved that city so much that they have to visit it when Nora is on vacation. She ends up meeting one guy that also works with other authors, but he's known for being like really hard and really stern, and she doesn't hate him, but she doesn't really enjoy his company that much. But over this little vacation, they all meet. Charlie's also there, and guess what? He's from there. So yeah, that's the little thing that I'm giving you off. Book Lovers was nice. I did enjoy reading it. It was the first book I read from Emily Henry, and I absolutely loved it. And now talking about Beach Read, which was the second I did read, it focuses on our character January and Augustus Everett. I think that's how you pronounce his name. And Emily, I was gonna say the name of the author. And our character January has been through a lot of stuff. Her father died recently, like in the last year or so, and she had to take care of his house on another state. I don't know how American states work. I don't know if it was a different city or just a different state. I think it was a state. And she's now taking care of all the house, and she meets her neighbor, who's August. And at first, she doesn't really enjoy him. He seems like a really old man, and who's just an asshole. And then he's really loud at night, and she doesn't really like that because she's mourning, and she's kind of drunk a bit of the time. And guess what? They're both authors. They write books, and they write completely different types of books. So there's another reason for her to hate him, because she writes the typical romantic romance where everyone ends up in a really nice happy ending, while he writes literary fiction. And most of his books end in really bad, have really bad endings. Everyone dies and there's no happy endings. So there's that. They have really different personalities, but there's one thing keeping them close to each other. And I'm not gonna say it because it's spoiler, so you should read it. But it's really nice, and I'm really bad at explaining book plots. But I do like talking about the book when I don't have to be like, oh, I can't say this because it's a spoiler. So there's that. Next off, I like Holly Black's books. I do. I have her books right here. I haven't read Stolen Air yet. It's on my 2024 reading list. But I did enjoy the books. I didn't love them, but I did like them. So I was one day looking through her books and one name came up. And this was so weird to me because I loved this movie growing up. And it was the Spiderwick Chronicles. And I absolutely loved this movie growing up. And when I found out there were books about them and that she helped write the books, I was like, I gotta read them. I know it's more of on the children type of books, and they're really short. There's like 5 or 6 books and they're like 100 pages each, so basically one really long book. But I was like, well, I'm also a kid. I'm 20. I can enjoy reading children books. So that's what I did. I read the first 2 books of the series, which were The Field Guide and The Seeing Stone. And if you've never seen the book or read this, seen the book, if you've never seen the movie or read the books, it's about a family that moves to an old aunt's house in the middle of like literally nowhere. And one of the children, there's 3 children, there's twins, 2 boys and 1 girl, and they're just living with their mom because their dad is not there with them. He's not dead, he's just not there with them. So while one of the boys is searching the home, they find a weird book. It's like a field guide that focuses on mysterious fairy type of creatures. They are not, you can see with our human eyes, and that really captivates the boy. And then really weird stuff starts happening in the house and around the forest in their home, and that's how I got really captivated about the books. And if you want to know what starts happening more, they do end up meeting a few things that are in that book, but I'm not gonna say much more about it because, like I said, it is going to spoiler zone. But they're really good, and the books do have what's the name, drawings in them with the little things that are happening throughout the chapters, and it's really nice because I loved having drawings in my books growing up. So yeah. And last but not least, I finished this year because it's almost Christmas, so yeah. I finished this year by reading all the Heartstopper volumes that are out. The Heartstopper books are written by Alice Oseman, and they're focused on our 2 main characters, Charlie, who's a really introverted, openly gay character, and Nick, who's soccer. I think it's soccer in is it soccer? Rugby? Rugby. He's a really soft-hearted rugby player, and they really connect. They're really best buds, and there's a lot of heavy topics talked about in all of the volumes. You have a lot of talk about depression, eating disorders, self-harm, learning to love yourself, and I think I would characterize these books as young adult, and I'm pretty sure that everyone growing up should read these books because they really help sorting out certain things you might have inside of you that you're not really aware that are happening to you. So that's how I would put Heartstopper in characterizing it. I was really unsure of reading them because I don't normally read LGBTQ plus books. It's not because I don't like them or anything like that. It's just it's never come to my hands one of those books. That's mostly because of it, and because I wasn't really looking into reading that as many graphic novels as I did this year. But I did, and I really enjoyed them. So I'm really looking forward to the next volume coming out next year and reading it. So yeah, these were all the books I read this, no, not all, but all that I did read since July. Which were a few, okay, I had school work, I had a lot of things to do, and I really enjoyed them. I hope you enjoyed this video. It takes a lot of effort to come into the internet and say all the things that you enjoy while having a really weird accent and feeling like shit, I'm stumbling so hard while talking. But I do enjoy talking about the things that I like, and I hope that you enjoy listening to the things that I like as well. So yeah, we're best buddies here. I'm talking to a camera, which I really had a hard time doing at the beginning, because I was like, I'm looking into the eyes of my future friends, you know? So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video, which will come out sooner than you expect. So yeah, bye guys.